Hello, welcome to the Whistle Stop Railroad. This is Poor Man's Trains. I am your host, Bob Martin, and this is the first in what I hope to be a fairly regular series of how you can have a whole lot of fun on model railroading without having to spend a whole lot of money. In this episode, I'm going to be remotoring my old Athearn Blue Box Locomotive. Now, when I first started my layout, it was just a basic 4x8 double oval layout. As it evolved and progressed and grew, I started with block wiring and then finally converted everything to DCC. Once I went with DCC, I was never really able to get great performance out of this old Blue Box locomotive, so we're going to be repowering it with an Athearn Genesis motor and hopefully answering once and for all the old question that comes up in this topic of will it fit. Now, before we get much further in this, I want to address a few questions that I know are going to come up before you get to typing them. So when all is said and done, including shipping, I spent about $60 on all the supplies and materials I need for this particular project. And that's not too bad, but I know there are some people out there that will say, why would you waste that kind of money on this old bucktooth blue box when for the same amount of money you can go online and pick up another locomotive that already runs better on DCC and is more highly detailed? And that's a valid point. To illustrate the point, actually, let me introduce you to my Riva Rossi U25C. Now, this is from Riva Rossi's latest production run before taking a hiatus from the U.S. market. It has fantastic detail. The chains are real chain. Gangplank goes up and down. The see-through parts on the body are actually see-through. Sturdy handrails, not cheap plastic ones. The roller bearings on the wheels actually roll with the locomotive. It is heavy, and it will pull anything on my layout that I ask it to pull. Now, I picked this locomotive up off of eBay for $40. That's an amazing deal. And it was the DCC ready version, because I already had a decoder that I could throw into it. I have since upgraded it to sound with an iPhone 4 speaker, and it's just a fantastic locomotive. I spent less for this than what I'm spending on this. And if that's what you want to do, you can do that. But this is my locomotive. I spent a lot of time and effort on rebuilding this, making it run better. And what I'd like to do is try to get as consistent performance out of this as what I can get out of this. Now, the next question that's going to come up is like, okay, so you're going with a kind of an untested motor combo when there's other options that are out there, such as the Cato motor or Northwest Short Lines. And both of those are really good options, too. Now, I got the Cato motor when I remotored another old Blue Box locomotive. I've been pretty happy with the results. It's definitely an improvement over stock, though not quite as much of an improvement as I was hoping it was going to be. Now, Northwest Short Lines makes a remotor kit specific to the Athearn Blue Box locomotive. Now, it so happens that I got the same motor that comes with this kit when I remotored my old 464 Hudson. This is a great little can motor, and I've been super happy with the performance that I have gotten out of it in this particular application. But part of the fun of the hobby for me is in the building. It's in the overcoming certain problems when they do come up, and that's why I went with the motor that I've chosen, the Athearn Genesis motor, and it keeps an Athearn in my Athearn. So, the Cato motor is great. Northwest Short Lines motor is great. If you'd rather just get a new locomotive, that's fantastic. There are options that are out there. For me, I'm going to jump into this project and improve the performance of the locomotive that I already have. So the motor that we're going to be using for this is the Genesis motor upgrade kit for the RTR SD40 and 45 models. Now, the nice thing about the RTR models is that they share the same engine bolt pattern as the Blue Box models. So this engine, in theory, could be a pretty direct bolt-in upgrade to the Blue Box motor, although some minor adjustments may be needed. The other nice aspect of this is that it includes the light board. Now, simply by installing this motor with the light board into the locomotive, we're turning it from a DC locomotive to a DCC-ready locomotive. We're able to hardwire some of the lights right into it, so this is a much better upgrade than, say, a Cato or the Northwest Short Lines motor. Is that the drive shafts were different between the Blue Box locomotives and the RTR and the Genesis models, but thanks to our friends over at A-Line, we have not only the universal length hex drive couplings, but we also have the female worm couplings that we can swap right onto the worm gear, and we can cut those drive shafts to the exact length that we are going to need, and that will upgrade the entire drive line for the locomotive and get us up and running. So that's enough talk. Now it's time to get to work. So disassembly of the blue box is pretty well documented. Just squeeze the sides and pull it apart. In this case, since I've already done a DCC conversion, I've got a bunch of extra wires that I've got to take out. Get them unplugged. And the shell is off. Next, speaking of the conversion, I've got to unsolder all those wires that I've put to the top of the gear towers and the front clip. And get that back one off. And once all the wires are off, just squeeze the engines on both sides, pry it up out of the frame, and set aside. Next, we've got to just pry off the clips that hold down the gear towers. There goes the front. We can pull the whole front truck right out, worm gear and everything. And then the back, just gently pry it off. And then we're down to the bare frame. Now in the DC version, the power comes up from the frame through this little front clip. I'm going to be running a power wire right directly to the truck, so we're not going to need this for a clip, so I'm just going to pry it out and remove it. Now the motor, as you can see, has little screws on the bottom of the mounting plate and a couple different holes there, so a couple different variations of how you could put that motor on the plate. In this situation though, it just pops right in perfectly. Plenty of room for the flywheels to spin, and screw the motor into the frame with the supplied screws. Now, we did a lot of work with the trucks previously, freeing them up so they ran pretty unrestricted and nice and free. So just going to put a power wire on them. And then we got to replace the couplings on the end of the worm gear. Make sure you don't lose the little square bearings here. As you can see, these are simply pressed onto the shaft. So you need to, I just chucked this in a vise, press it off, and press the new ones back on. Install it back into the truck. Make sure we got plenty of room, and they're ready to put back in the frame. Now the A-line universal drive shafts are actually pretty easy to cut to length. You just snap it into the female worm coupling, and install the shaft into the flywheel. It's going to stick over a little bit, and that's okay. Then come in and measure just how far over it does go. Then you add 1/8 of an inch, or roughly 125 thousandths of an inch to that measurement. And that is how much you have to remove from your drive shaft. And once you have your measurement, just carefully line it up, gently cut. With the drive shaft cut properly to length, just put a little glue on the end of it. I'm using Testor's plastic cement. Snap the hex head on, and you have your new drive shaft cut to length. Now this glue takes a couple of seconds to dry. You can any CA glue will work as well. But once you have it on and in place, just snap it onto your female worm coupling, install into the drive shaft, make sure everything's going to fit, and repeat on the other side. And with both drive shafts done, a quick test on the DC circuit. And then with the decoder installed, testing it on DCC. So with the motor and decoder and everything installed, we put our shell down on and find out, oh, look at that, it's just a little too tall. Now with these blue box locomotives, they had a little shell, a little pocket, so to speak, on the very top of the shell that held a little metal weight. I've got it stuffed with wires in this one. I'm going to go ahead and remove it just to give us extra room inside of the shell. I'll start with my Dremel for the rough cuts and then finish it off with X-Acto and a file. And with everything cleaned up, nice and neat, snap it right back down on. And everything nice and snug and fit. Pretty tight, but it's in there. And we are good to go. Ignore the mess. So obviously I got a bit of rewiring to do. Picked up a set of monster lights from Malmayo, stand-up guy, really cool. I'm going to pop a bunch of these in and again wire it up so it's nice and neat and clean, easy to go around. But tear tolerance is pretty tight in here, but everything fits. Again, pretty tight, but it can snap in, stay in place. It'll look good when it's done, and that's the important part. So I'm not going to bore you with the wiring aspect of it, but I will show you the end results. Hopefully just be a matter of a couple of quick plugs to keep it nice and neat. And so there you have it. Athearn Genesis motor in a Blue Box Locomotive using an RTR retrofit kit. Pretty straightforward process, really. Total build time was about 20 minutes to swap out the motor. I did a little bit of extra work just with the wires on the monster lights and the plugs the way that I like to do it. But when all is said and done, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. No extra special tools really needed. You can get the motor to sit a little further down into the frame if you mill the frame out, if you have that tooling available to you. I didn't need it. It's pretty tight, but it does still fit. Other things I noticed, with the starting voltage set to 1 and on speed step 1, it's still actually pretty fast, which is a little bit unexpected, but I'll have to do a little research, see if I can slow it down a little bit in any way. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. It's consistent, it runs good. My basement's a little cold, so even when you start out, it runs pretty well. So pretty happy with it, and that's this video. The whole point of this exercise is taking a locomotive that I already had, improving its running condition. I spent about 60 bucks, so that's not too bad at all. Well, thanks for watching the video. If you have any comments, please post them down below. I'll try my best to read all of them, respond as I can. Any future videos you'd like to see, let me know, and I'll do what I can. Happy railroading.